So welcome everyone to the virtual staff room, what we lovingly call Techy Tuesday. These are the technical updates received from Google in the month of February 2023. As we said a moment ago, one or two of them you will recognize from yesterday. There are a couple of additional things coming out of it. There we go. Just want my speaker notes up because I've made some notes in those as well. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, good. So let's kick off. Welcome everyone. So I put this in because it was in one of the updates. I don't expect this is necessarily going to apply to anyone, but if you're using Google Voice, they have expanded the SIP link, whatever SIP stands for, out to Latin America. So if you happen to have an office in one of those countries, then you can have local numbers there, and you can have an account, but you know, the person in England sits on their English number, and then when they go out to your office in Brazil or Mexico or wherever, then you can change their voices and things. So it just gives you a little bit of extra functionality. I think universities and some FE colleges have got offices in other countries, haven't they? I know De Montfort here has got offices in, I think, somewhere in Europe, I was told, and then one out in the Far East. So they do have local offices that people can go into, but I think schools generally don't tend to, other than your Harrows and those kind of things. But there we go. So you've got that functionality should you want it to give the impression of a local number. I mentioned this yesterday that they've changed the interface for to allow people to share giving different settings for content managers to be able to manage the settings in Google shared drives now. And it's part of that whole thing about being able to share individual files and folders to people that aren't necessarily in the list of people within the shared drive. So someone that just needs to see a document for a week or two, you could give them access to that document. And I think it's documents. I can't remember whether it is just documents or documents and folders. If someone knows, just pop it in the chat. But certainly, and it allows you to manage all those folders and things. And the reason I put it back in again today is there's also a new Drive API that allows your developers to update the settings for content managers for your shared drives programmatically. So you can make some share settings changes globally using the Drive API. So if you've got developers on site that do that kind of thing for you, and it's delivered through the GAM command line tool, like lots of these API kind of tasks. So you've got the function should you want to go back and change the settings for them all. So if you want that new box to allow content managers to share folders to be the case for all content managers, you could probably use the Drive API to allow that to happen. So you've got that in place. Good. I mentioned Google Captions with Google Meet video recording yesterday. I suspect that I have turned it on again today, but I suspect that it's about if I turn captions on now, or if you turn captions on now, it somehow saves it, because I looked yesterday and I couldn't find them. So in order to be able to complete it, and Chris will send information out about this in the email he sends out with the links to the slide deck and the video. So I'm just turning my closed captions on for a little bit. You can't see it, of course, because you're looking at my slide deck, but it's on there now, so that I'm turned it off now. So when I come to report about how those closed captions work, then you'll know. That is for Teaching and Learning Upgrade and Education Plus, of course. And it's there in the recording tab. When you select the recording tab on the right, you've got the option to nominate the language for captions. Just allows you to do that. Now I've done some captions, I'll be able to tell you how that actually works when the email goes out on Thursday evening with the video links and so on and so forth. So that's it's just worth saying that in that, I mean, I'm sure you all know this, but you can turn the option to record meetings on or off in the admin panel. So of course, you needed to have turned all that on for any of that to apply within your organization. So if you've got it turned off for students, for example, they can't do any of that. But if you've got it turned on for staff, then they can, as long as they've got a license attached to their account. So there's that kind of double step thing there. This one confused me slightly, and I'm hoping James is still on the call, because he might, well, actually someone else might also be. James is still with us. Excellent, good. It turns out, because of the way Google Shared Drives works, that you might well find yourself in a situation where you've got unmovable items, and they're launching the option for admins to generate a CSV report that details those items that are unmovable. So
I just add in there, Paul, this is to do with allowing users to move specific folders into a shared drive. So moving them out of my drive into a shared drive, and you can create in the admin console, you can select that people are able to do that, or if you want to, you can create a specific admin role for people to be able to do that as an administrator. You can, if it's not going to be able to move a certain folder, and the Google parameters for a folder that's unmovable are basically if the folder contains 25 or more items that are considered unmovable, or if the folder has 10% of more of the items are unmovable, then it will become unmovable. It won't move them, but what it will do is it will create in the shared drive a shortcut to that item so that your folder structure and the contents, even though they haven't been moved, will be the same in that shared drive.
All right, excellent, brilliant, thank you very much. And on there is the actual text from the email update email that I was trying to get my head around. And thank you, James, because James has clearly got it sorted. I've read it 3 or 4 times. I just don't understand exactly what this is telling me. Thank God for James. So that's the unmovable items. Again, I mentioned this yesterday. Just a reminder in case people weren't able to join us. If you use Google Meet hardware devices, the way you would kind of work out which devices are changing devices, there was a button on the back apparently in earlier versions that you had to click to change the source of the particular device that was connected to it. And whereas now there's a button on the screen that allows you to work out which devices are connected and select the one that you want. So it just makes that process of multiple devices connected to the same Meet hardware device and changing them around that a little bit easier because it's all on screen now. I think that's still the case. There are 1 or 2 people that I might not ask. I don't think we've got any customers that have joined us on any of these that ever use Google Meet hardware in their video conference rooms. I think generally those who've got video conference rooms seem to have gone for a different solution. And I may think all those kind of solutions are expensive, aren't they? Including the Google Meet hardware devices. So if you've already chosen one, there's not really a need to change it, I don't think. Okay, so client-side encryption for Google Calendars should now be generally available. Again, Education Standard and Education Plus, and those accounts that have got a license assigned to them. And there's been a whole series of these over the last few months where the option to do your encrypting on your end gives you that extra level of security, because of course the minute you're encrypting at your end, you also restrict the facility for Google to see even. So it makes it even more secure than it already is. And we know the reputation of Google for its security, documents and stuff there is encrypted at rest and encrypted in transit, so that the quality of the security is already high, but this is an additional one. If there's some particularly sensitive stuff that you wanted to encrypt, it just gives you an added level of security, like I say, at your end as well. There is a kind of a setup process where you've got to be allocated who's going to be doing that encryption for you and to assign a company to do it. It's all done in the admin panel. But Education Standard, Education Plus only, not the teaching and learning. And not fundamentals, of course. I think this, if you've got people who are using task reminders in Google Calendar, and your assistant for reminders, Google Assistant for reminders. So if you've got a Pixel book, for example, or a modern Chromebook that's got Google Assistant built in, if you're using those things for reminders, all that is going to be migrated to the Google Tasks. And it starts, if I remember rightly, in you'll start getting notifications late March, and I think the process starts around about May. So people need to think about where do they want their reminders to be. And we did talk yesterday about the fact that, and certainly Dave and I have both tried to get our heads around making tasks a useful tool for us, but we soon get to the stage where we've forgotten we've put stuff in there, so stuff just doesn't get done. So it doesn't seem to be an interface that suits either Dave or I. I don't know what other people think about it, but we're now down on a route where if you're using a different method, and I've used reminders in my calendar a lot. I found that quite useful, actually. I quite like to see it in the reminder, but I never open that side panel to look at the tasks to be reminded of things. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out and what happens to it. But that's the route that they're going on, and it's going to, over the next 4 or 5 months, everything will end up in tasks in terms of the reminders that you set yourself. So that's certainly one that you ought to be warning your staff around and making sure that they're up to speed with all that. And those who are using reminders heavily or who use the assistant as for reminders needs to think carefully about, well, we've got to rethink how we organize our workflows and think about changing it to a different place. I mean, the nice thing about tasks, of course, is it's in that right-hand sidebar, isn't it? Along with your contacts and your calendar and maps and things. So I get the logic of it, and maybe I just need to revisit it and try again and see how I get on this time. But just to be heads up that that's on its way. And the link, of course, will take you to the web page. The web page has got quite a bit of information about different dates for different account types, personal accounts, education and business accounts and things, and tasks that you as a admin person will have to do. And they're all kind of, there's a big on list of dates. So rather than trying to remember them all, I've just got the link, as always, at the top of the slide deck for you to go and have a look at. And this is an interesting one. When I was reading about this, I thought, I don't get why you would want to be able to do this. And I was reading through. So you can now control the visibility of warning banners in Gmail about things like phishing, for example, spam emails that they might get. And actually, the documentation says, actually, if you're doing anti-phishing training, so if you're going to send out a document that, just to see what percentage of people will click on that email from that Nigerian prince, offer them £1 million. If it's already being flagged as spam, then they're not likely to be clicking on it, hopefully. But if it isn't, then they might well. So it's quite a useful little tool to be able to do that for precisely that kind of thing. David, I noticed you're nodding there. Have you done some anti-phishing training within your organisation?
Yep, we did exactly this, and Gmail flagged it as potential phishing and kind of gave away the fact that it was, intended in that way to our users, which was not ideal at the time. So we had to design things a little bit more intelligently off the back of that. But yeah, we basically fished our own staff just to see who was going to respond, put a link in there for them to put the username and password in, and those who did were immediately selected for retraining, which probably isn't as dark as it sounds, but yeah, we targeted them for further training. But the first time we did it, Gmail kind of gave the game away a little bit by putting up the banner, which is a good thing, but this is even better, having that option to turn it off for a short period. What
kind of numbers did you have putting the details in?
The first time round we did it, we had about 15 people clicked on the links and 6 of them put the details in, and then that decreased significantly the second time round.
Because you put them in front of the firing squad, Dave?
Well, yeah, it does decrease when they're no longer there. Yes, but no, I think it was the first one was free. There was one person who got it wrong twice, and so they were publicly shamed and humiliated, and had rotten cabbages thrown at them. And if they do it again, then that's it. We can officially throw them in the ducking pool.
Yeah. Well, they must be a witch, so it makes perfect sense.
They weigh the same as a duck, so I think they probably are.
Yeah. Excellent. I mean, it's a thing that during lockdown there were quite a number of ransomware attacks, weren't there? And those people that have now had ransomware attacks are busy now. They've recovered from it. I hope they have, and now busy trying to get themselves into a better place in terms of their security. And you just think, well, it's horse and barn door and bolting, isn't it? It's the wrong way around. You need to prepare for the worst, however unlikely you might think it is, because with the best that 3 years ago I got a dodgy email, and it was what happened was one of our customers got, and then the little bit of virus that got delivered actually collected all their contacts and sent them all an email. But I'd just come off the meet with that customer, and he'd said he would send me a document. So literally about 2 minutes later, the email arrived with the document attached, and I clicked on it. So it did the same to me. So, there's just no way of knowing when these things are going to happen or under what circumstances. And it was just an unfortunate sequence of circumstances. We're all susceptible to it, and making sure we can do all we can to be safe is really important. And this one little thing of being able to test who the gullible people are is really important. So you can actually make sure that they have got just a little bit of training. And for most, I suspect, it's just a bit about saying, oh, by the way, you've just been got, you know, that Nigerian prince's got your bank account details. So once they're a little bit more aware that they've fallen foul of it, I suspect they'd be a bit more careful. It's the organic failure. There we go. Okay, moving on. So if there's anyone can help me with this one, I need help with this one. I kind of read it out and I understand little bits of it, but I don't quite understand what this means in real terms. I presume it's a security feature because it's talking about trusted types to Google Workspace, but precisely what happens and how it works is a mystery, because this is beyond my pay grade. Teacher first, technician second. Anyone got any insights into this one? Give them my mouse.
It's something to do with browser security. There's a new standard that comes out that basically prevents text spamming and breaking of browser and websites through just brute forcing via text. So trusted types is this new standard that they've created. I don't know a huge amount more about it other than that.
Okay. So it's basically for your developers. So if you've got your own stuff that sits on your domain even, but is within a web browser, then I presume you've got to think about adjusting your code in order that it matches this new standard that they've set. Is that the way it would work?
Yeah, essentially, it's almost like a verification of what text has been entered into a website. So if you've got a website where you're prompting somebody to put some data into there, then a common way of trying to hack or break the website would be to either put ridiculous amounts of text in or strings of certain types to break the code behind the website, and Trusted Types aims to combat that.
All right, I see. Okay. So it's almost a bit like a data validation, you know, Google form, but on a bigger scale.
I think. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I see. I see.
Others on the call may have more informed viewpoints. I'm not claiming expertise on that one, but that's my understanding.
Anyone get any other insights into this particular update? Anything anyone wants to add that might help the group? No. But I mean, it's new, isn't it? So, you know, the bottom line, it starts rolling out on the 23rd. Normal rollout pattern over 15 days, or 15 working days that they do sometimes say, but they normally say just 15 days, but it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks. So mid-April, just after Easter time, it should have rolled out to everyone. And then you can all start to have a play. And maybe I'll invite one of you back in to talk about it in a bit more detail in the April updates, just to see if we can get a handle on what the implication is for anything that you might be doing. Excellent. Thank you very much again for your help there, Dave. Okay, we talked about this yesterday as well. I just think this is a kind of handy little thing. You know, if you've got someone troubleshooting, not being able to get onto their Meet and you're not able to get to them themselves, to have a look at what the devices are that are connected and do their, you know, video and audio checks in this area. This waiting area before you join the meeting properly is called the green room. So this is a picture of this one individual sat in the green room, and you can see just about see the drop down below her there, where she can check all the settings of her devices to check she's properly connected and it's all working properly before she clicks that join now button and joins the meet. So there's none of that kind of scrabbling around. From our point of view, I would say it's particularly useful because sometimes with Windows devices, we notice that Windows devices aren't the best at changing the sound sources, the audio microphone and camera and things, and the speakers when someone joins a meet. Sometimes they're forever having to fiddle in the settings, in the audio settings, to get it to allow us to hear them, and it's always a bit of a fiddle. So if you can do it before you actually join, I think that will be really handy. And that appears just below your own image, so you can check you're in the center of your camera as little drop downs just to be able, and you can change them. Of course, you can see there's 2 options there for it to select. So that seems to be a really nice thing. We talked about this yesterday in case that actually did apply to anyone. This is specifically about Salesforce and Zendesk, the kind of support ticket tool, that there's now integrations into Google Chat. So you could have a Google Chat space for all your IT technicians if you have more than one. And you can assign tickets in Zendesk, for example, from one person to another, and so on and so forth. So it allows you to have a little bit, you know, more integration with the chat groups that you've got and the tools that you use. Specifically in this example, it's talking about Salesforce and Zendesk. So if you use either of those, you've got a function that will allow you to integrate into chat a little bit more easily. It doesn't mention anything else in those, just those two. So that's specifically what it's talking about. I mean, there are other things, there are other, I suppose they're called bots technically in there as well. You can do a poll. There's one called Polly or Polly, P-O-L-L-Y. And there's actually a Meet tool that allows you to calculate, to ask it to suggest times for calendar events. So if I was in a chat with David, I could just go at Meet, create a meeting for David and I tomorrow afternoon, and it'll show me, then it'll look at both our calendars, show me a list of available times, and then you can say at Meet A, and it'll make an appointment for option A, and so on and so forth. So it's there are already other ones, but these are now kind of bigger, I suppose. Zendesk particularly is not uncommon. I don't think Dave said he used another one. Can't remember what it was, but if you use Zendesk, then you can start to integrate into chat. Excellent. So noise cancellation. Now, this is an interesting one. I was thinking about this and didn't mention this yesterday. Noise cancellation, when it first came out, was for Teaching and Learning and Education Plus, and only those two. And it's now for also Fundamentals and Education Standard. So it's an interesting decision they've made, because I thought now the paid versions are established and a significant number of people are subscribing to them, they're going to start to make that differentiation. They've always said, and they always will, I'm sure of it, fully support the fundamentals, of course, but they'll start to look at those things they consider to be premium features, like higher quality noise cancellation, as one that goes into the paid services. But they've clearly made a decision, for whatever reason, that this will actually work across all the versions of Google Workspace, which is a good thing for those who couldn't previously have it. And it's, if you're in a noisy room, or near a corridor, yeah, it could well be that. Dave, I don't know if people are reading the chat. Dave's suggesting it's what Teams and Zoom are doing. Whatever version you've got, you get noise cancellation. Yeah, and it does work. I think if you're in a really, really noisy room, it's not brilliant. I was on a meet yesterday with someone who was in an open office, and as people walked by, you could hear them. But it kind of does. I don't think you ever hear the traffic noise. And I'm right on a busy road here in Leicester, and I don't think that ever picks that up. And I've just been having a dog going mad because my wife's having her hair done on a hairdryer was going, and he doesn't like hair drying, and I'm presuming you didn't hear that either. So generally speaking, it does well to cancel noise within the area. So it's good that it's coming on for everyone. So if you are still on fundamentals or you're on education standard, then you'll also get that sometime soon. And those are they. That is it for this week. Just a quick reminder about the Workspace specific admin help. If you're not aware of that, I presume that you all are by now, because you're all experienced administrators. And that's in the slide deck, same as it was last time. Any questions, any comments, any observations? Any questions or comments not relating to those, that anyone's got a conundrum, a challenge, an issue that they want to use the combined wisdom of this meet to try and solve? Well, I think we can go out to play a little bit early then. Excellent.
That's always useful. We might be able to eat today. That would be a nice change, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, I've got another one. I've got another meeting at 1. So this is great for me. It means I won't be having my lunch at 2:30, which will be fantastic. Next updates are Tuesday, April the 4th. And I know that might well be in the Easter holidays for some of you, but I also know that because you're on the technical side, often when everyone else goes on a holiday, you often stay because you've got stuff to do. And it's easier when there's no kids in the school, isn't it? And no staff in the schools. Schools run so much more smoothly, don't they, when there's no teachers and staff in there. So so we kept the dates there. So the Monday will be the user updates. Tuesday will be the Techy Tuesday updates.